we go. Hi, everyone. Welcome to Coach's Corner. Tonight, we're kind of between holidays here, and we're looking forward to just kind of having a relaxing episode with everybody. We're going to kind of wait a little bit more. I'll talk about what we're going to do tonight. And first, I'd like to thank Tristan, or Viscount Tristan, for coming on. And he probably know a lot more about movies than I do. I know what movies I like. I don't know names, so don't ask me. Sir Bess is an expert in the movie career, and and she's gonna hate me. But she was talking some wonderful stories. You're all gonna laugh, and because we laughed when she was telling us. So I look forward. Bess always brings a lot of joy to the show. And we're hoping that His Highness from the Mist comes and joins, because he is a resident, and he's coming on right now. In fact, it looks like he's trying to get his video, but he is a resident expert at all things Hollywood. It seems like if you ever watch Alaric's page, Facebook page, he does a bunch with movies. He watches them and reviews almost every one of them. I've been on shows. I don't know where he stores all that information, along with the amount of stuff about fighting he knows. So incredible. That's all I can say. So as soon as he resolves some technical difficulties, we'll get him on. But meanwhile, I'm going to throw this at Tristan a little bit. And before we go, actually, we are going to go ahead and pull people in from the audience. I'll kind of reach out, send people links to the StreamYard. We can talk about your favorite movie and talk about why. And then if you want to hang out in the StreamYard area, that's fine. We're just going to turn off the screen. You won't participate, but, because we can only have so many people at a time. But we look forward to having more community involvement here. It's, what? We're all just chilling out. We have some time off. Let's make it fun. What do you think, Tristan?
Yeah, that sounds good. We were chatting about this as a possible episode, talking about movies that inspired us or got us interested in the SCA or kind of fed that interest. So that's kind of loosey-goosey. There's not really a rigid time period. There could be ancient gladiator flicks. There could be sword and sorcery movies. There could be, even somewhat more modern period. That's not like a strict time limit or that sort of thing, or even theme, kind of like fantasy comedy qualifies, or dramatic type movies. Anything in there that would kind of get you thinking about the SCA thing or get you inspired certainly qualifies. So, we made a big list of, have you seen this movie? And we sent it to each other, and we're kind of checking off like, wow, there's a lot I haven't seen on there. People are saying anywhere from, I've saw 95% of those movies, to, wow, I haven't even seen half of them. So and anywhere in between. And I'm sure there's going to be movies on here that you recognize. And similar to the book episode we did last year, there might be some movies on here you've never heard of, but would want to go see. So get your pen and paper ready and maybe write down some notes of some good suggestions of a movie you perhaps haven't seen. So we're going to talk about a bunch of them, what we liked about them, what we didn't. Had each of us kind of put together a top 5 favorites list, maybe even some stinkers that we thought were really bad, because there are some bad ones in there. So yeah, we don't really have a structure for this, but we can, get the chat started. Oh, there's Alaric right there.
Hey, everybody.
Hello, sir.
Technical issues.
Augie, where you are.
Brannos, you're muted.
So, Alaric, just to let you know, we threw you in because you're the resident expert. I said that I have no clue how you hold all of the Hollywood information in your head as well as fighting. So, you're on the kind of on the night tonight to show it off.
All right. Well, let's see what we can do.
Thanks for joining us, by the way. It's always nice to be able to talk. I know we get to talk a lot on Tuesdays, and I appreciate that. I appreciate it all the way through COVID on Great Fighters YouTube, and it's been great. And I thought of you as soon as we went into the show. I'm like, man, I read every one of your reviews on every movie you go to.
Well, that's not necessarily a good thing, but okay. I'm not very nice to some of them. So
No, well, hey, you're realistic. So, tonight that's what we're going to talk about. And, Tristan, you mentioned that there are some movies that are good or bad. We're going to talk about them. Some are good and bad.
Absolutely.
so let's get the big one.
You love them.
Exactly. Let's get the big one off the list right away. Because
Excalibur.
this is, what it's going to be. Knight Riders. Exactly. Good or bad. I'm going to start because I'm going to tell you when I was before and as I came into the SCA, man, I loved watching it, not for all the slow scenes, but just for the intensity that, the two main actors had. And it was just like, the whole driving off into a semi gig. I got bad news, man. I get it.
Well, that was basically Ed Harris's first breakout role.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, he crushed it.
Because he was a Pittsburgh guy, just like Romero. I mean, and that's where that movie was basically made. And his buddy Tom Savini had done all the makeup for all his movies, so they were really good friends. So that's how that kind of whole thing came together. And if you're not aware, it's essentially based around the story of the split, the Bob Fox MSR split with the SCA. If you didn't know.
Yeah, that's what I had heard, was that the story was inspired by the SCA, and they made, for those of you who've not seen it or maybe you've never heard about it, it's a story of a kind of an acting group similar to a small circus that does these shows, these little medieval fairs, and they travel from town to town and they put on these shows, and it's about the drama within the group and the.
Wait, you forgot the important thing. They joust on motorcycles.
I was getting to that. The frustrating part was they had some on foot, but they also would ride motocross bikes with shields mounted on them, and they'd have these lances, and they would joust with them, and it was a kind of a low grade gritty spectacle, but it was still a spectacle, and it was fun to watch. When I went back and rewatched it a few years ago, I forgot how long it was. It was an extended movie. It was pretty long, but there were some parts of it that I really, really loved. And Ed Harris is one of my favorite actors of all time, so it's hard not to like him and his intensity and what he brings to it.
When I saw it when I was a kid, I thought it was like the coolest thing, and then tried to watch it a couple of years ago, and it was just it has not held up. It's not held up the same way. And if you didn't know, like, local biker gang guys did half the stunts for that movie.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, it's not, so it's a really kind of a low budget bringing together of Romero's kind of whole philosophy behind making films. So and then they throw in the whole kind of, it's a very hippie movie if you haven't watched it. And it's kind of like the good and nature loving side of people versus the corporate team. And that's eventually what the line it breaks down on. And then the corporate guy finds his path again. And if you're into that, you're into that. I doesn't work for me anymore.
Yep. It has some good points. It drags in certain points. And one of our listeners, Michael, says that Stephen King does have a cameo appearance in it and a speaking role, which is really funny.
He and Romero were friends at that point, so it's logical that he did that.
It's worth checking out, but be ready. It's long. It's
feel free to fast forward.
Feel free, yeah.
It's hard. I mean, some of that is you kind of have to drive through the long sections to really appreciate.
Feel free to fast forward. Feel free to fast forward.
So
I mean, the odd thing is that if you look at it from the time it was made, many of the ideas of the classic SCA dream are kind of wrapped up in it, and I think that's why it resonated so much.
Yeah, total.
But that's kind of fallen by the wayside as well. So as a whole.
So Bess is waiting to tell everybody. Go ahead, Bess.
Oh no, it's okay. I can listen to the conversation.
Oh no, you should absolutely tell. Bess had a story, so she came into the SCA right around that time.
Don't know. The movie Knight Riders came out in 1981. Okay. I joined the SCA in 1987, and one of the first awful movies I ever saw was Night Riders. And as I said, there in Night Riders, there's jousting on motorcycles, and in one of the big scenes, in the opening, as you're learning about this, everybody's jousting, and finally Sir Rocky wins. And Sir Rocky, everyone's Sir Rocky wins, crowd goes wild. So then, Sir Rocky drives up to the king or whoever, and to get their prize, and they take off their helmet, and Sir Rocky is a woman. Ooh, the big surprise! And she's got this blonde hair, and it's kind of wavy, and she takes off her helmet. She kind of shakes it. So for years after I joined the SCA, my secret thing was I wouldn't tell anybody, and I'm telling you guys now for the first time. I just started fighting, and women fighters weren't all that common. So I would take my helm off and I would shake my hair, although it was very short because Brannos Henry V had just come out, and I had a short Brannos Henry V cut. And I would shake my hair, and I would just think of Sir Rocky, and I would be like, "Ha, surprise!"
Oh, that's great.
Such an idiot.
I could see His Highness do that, but I don't know.
What?
I think I saw His Highness do that when he first started. I don't.
Back when I had long hair, maybe.
Back when you had that long hair, you'd take it off and be like,
women weren't.
No, it was almost always in a ponytail when I fought, because having it was too much trouble.
Actually. But women didn't fight, and it was Sir Rocky, and she was like the winner, and this horrible.
So I mean, on that point, though, kind of on that point, Bess, it's interesting because that was a rough time in a society for female fighters as well. So it was interesting it coming out in the movie and kind of breaking that stigma a little bit.
Yeah, it was nice. Even still, with the movies that we're going to be talking about tonight, or the series maybe. There's not a whole lot of female protagonists who actually fight or run the show. It's just the way it is. So although we hadn't planned on talking about Xena, that was another one, during the earlier times, was it 90s when Xena was out with Lucy Lawless?
Mid-90s, yeah.
Mid-90s.
94, 98.
That was one of the few things, you got Wonder Woman, but, she ran around essentially in a strapless bathing suit, trying to block bullets with gold lame wristlets or whatever the hell those things were. So there wasn't a whole lot to look to in the movies as inspiration. So yeah, Rocky. Hi.
Mm-hmm. All right. So while we're like a couple minutes ago, you brought up, and it's a classic, so we have to talk about it. Henry V. Oh. And before we go, hold on. I'm doing a terrible job producing since I'm the producer. I fail. Although, hey, look, I even came here ready for the show. Nice. But the Henry V, we have to talk about it. And Tristan, Lawrence Olivier, the 44 or 89 Henry V?
And I'm going to confess here, I've never been a big Shakespeare fan. And it was never really in my wheelhouse. The times I stuck my toe in the water, I just didn't care for it much. So I was never big on going and watching the movies. I did see the Brannos version. It was pretty good. I like Shakespeare's stories. Usually, it's a lot like Bob Dylan. I like his writing, but he needs to have somebody else perform it. And kind of translate it. We were talking this about before the show. Not only is the language a little awkward because it's an older tongue, but there's slang and slang terms and phrases that are used and referenced that I just don't get. I don't think most people in this century get, unless you're really an English literature geek. And so for that reason, I don't really care for it. But when other storytellers tell Shakespeare stories, they usually do a really good job. But now Henry V, to my knowledge, was not done by Kurosawa or some other filmmakers that took that story and restructured it into something else, because it's Henry V. It's a good historical piece. But, I like the Brannos version, but it didn't really turn my crank to go back and watch it over and over again. That's my thought.
All right, Bess.
So Brana in a heartbeat. I watched the two versions back to back. The earlier ones, like it suffers from when it was created. It was created in like the 40s, and they were
42.
disclaiming, and Shakespeare was so important, and so we had to disclaim. And but the Brana version, man, I love that thing. When at the end of when they're talking, he's talking to Catherine of Valois, who will eventually become his wife. He's talking about, oh, sweet Catherine, it'll be you and me. We'll roll. We're going to roll this. And then you're like, oops, here comes your father. Like it's fabulous. He talks just like a person talking, and I love this movie. 99% of it. So there's the one scene where the Duke of Bedford walks in to talk to the prince, and he's doing this great speech, because he's giving Henry V's reply to the Dauphin's gift of tennis balls, right? He's like, think foul scorn, contempt, and anything else that might not misbecome the mighty sender. And it's like this great, and I can't focus because his elbow is hanging down around mid-arm, and all I can think is, like, it distracts me so badly. Like, all I can think is, who let him do that? Who let him walk out? Like, that couldn't even have been comfortable. Stop it. Move the elbow, put the armor back in place. It's a brilliant scene, except for that.
Well, to burst your bubble, it's probably actually Brian Blessed who did it on his own, because that's his personal suit of armor.
Oh, dear God in heaven. Was it truly? That hurts my feelings. Brian Blessed.
Sorry.
Oh, my God.
And this is why I wanted George on, because he has like all the insight.
So I got to work with him, so he and I talked about that one. That was his personal suit.
Okay,
that he wore that's also why, if you look, it's a 15th century suit, not a 14th century suit. It doesn't match any of the other armor in the film.
Because it's
his personal suit.
Save money. Okay. Well, I didn't know that. That's very interesting. Now, I'm going to assume it was built for him, so maybe it's just the angle of the shot.
No, it probably as they were doing it, and it was probably the best take acting wise, so they kept the take rather than worried about 90% of the people watching are not going to notice that armor, the elbows hanging low.
Wow. There's one other thing. If you really love this movie, like, close your ears for the next part, because I'm about to ruin like the pivotal scene for you. So it's the end of the movie, and the boy has been killed, right? The boy in the luggage train, and Henry's carrying him across the field, and the guy in the background singing "Non nobis in Te Deum." I am a dog person. If you put a dog in a scene, I will find it. In the background, far away, there's like a white Pyrenees, and his little tail is wagging, and he's running all around, and he's playing with the corpses, and he's jumping into a puddle. I love that part of the movie. Can't watch the scene anymore. But this really intense, great moment. And by all accounts, so for those of you who don't watch IMDb or carry it in your brains, I always troll IMDb both for their trivia section and for their goof section. And so I have up the IMDb on this part of it. And apparently Brannos was actually carrying the boy the whole scene. There was no, like, the kid wasn't on a harness or anything. And the pain that you see in his face is accurate, because he's carrying this kid, this heavy young man, across muddy fields, and he's slipping, and his back is killing him. So apparently the emotion that you see on his face is 100% real. And I love that movie. It's like in fact, so I was in France, and there's a bit of a scene at Agincourt that my girlfriend Sir Kelvin and we recreated on the battlefield at Agincourt. So that's, because I'm a geek.
If you're also worried about armor in that movie, there's a shot where you have the Duke of Bedford along with several of the other guys all standing next to each other. And as you go along the row, you get the high quality armor he's wearing, some real mail, and then sweater mail, all in one row.
And when the French are riding in, they slam their visors, and it's like their helms end right here, and there are no gorgets, and that really bugs me. But at least they're wearing
I got bad news.
What?
We don't have to be in SCA armor.
You don't have to be protected. Like you protect your head, but we'll just cut off your head by your neck. So it's like that. I'm
Well,
just like,
in the Olivier version, they're all wearing really
Oh.
substantial
yes,
gorgets.
yeah. It's cut-
So, George, which one are your Highness? Which one do you like the best?
Oh, I prefer the Branno version. I know I'm going to hell for saying that, but the Olivier
Yeah, you are
version
going to hell.
was done during World War II, and it's really a propaganda piece that they kind of turned out to keep spirits up of the people. And it looks like it's done on a stage, and they just filmed it. It's just, and I'm not a huge fan of Olivier's acting in that movie. In other movies, he's amazing. In that movie, not.
Yeah, I would agree. I think the piece for me is well, first I needed subtitles for the 1989 version because I was in they didn't show it anywhere, right? So I had to go to we went to the DIA, which is our Detroit Institute of Arts, to watch it. So it's the only place that was playing it. And so we're sitting there, very nice studio, but I'm like, I can't understand like the first third of the movie until I started being able to break down the accent stuff they were doing through it, right? So I felt like I had to go watch it twice. Second time it was much easier, but oh my god, it was rough. I'm I kind of like a lot of stuff, earlier stuff, and we were talking about that before, and then that is, man, they just cut the scenes. There wasn't a million cuts. Everything wasn't perfect. They just cut them, run them, and if you were laughing or if you made a mistake or anything, in 1944, they just ran it through, right?
Well, it's budget. It's budget, and they had,
and that's I like the way film now. So that's the reason why I like that one.
So that's a good bad movie.
No, it is. I mean, the other piece on that is just like a lot of other movies coming out of that period. Man, you had thousands of people on set.
Yeah.
I mean, when you set up an army, it looks like an army. It's like, you take a look at the Zulu movie and stuff like that. It's like, shit, that's a lot of people. You wonder how they do it.
Yeah.
Or like Alexander Nevsky, the Russian film about the Teutonics invading Russia, and they
that was a good one.
fall through the ice. People, extras were cheap. That was not the expensive part of the film, so they could have 500 or 1,000 people on set.
Exactly. All right, so let's move on to Tristan. Throw us one. Throw us a Japanese one. You have to
before we jump to the Japanese one, a listener made the comment. I think this is going to be a popular one. A lot of people are thinking about is A Knight's Tale. My thought on that one was it struck me like a Disney movie. It felt like the Robin Hood, the animated Robin Hood. It was lighthearted, did not take itself seriously, but it had a good virtue to it that I really liked. The music made me cringe.
Why? The music was fascinating.
But the story I liked for just being simple. It was a classic, the classic young squire who grows to be a knight. Like it reminded me of Arthur drawing the sword from the stone as when he was young. That whole thing had kind of a modern take on that, but the costumes were horrendous. The hair.
You're killing me, man. You're killing me.
No. I agree with Tristan. It's like they're wearing like a really nice coat RD, and then they have like flappy pants on under it, and I'm like, why didn't you just put on hosen? Like that much. Everything about that movie, this much of like little change would have made it like historically accurate and like really good, and I could have overlooked the music. But those little things they made these minor little changes to things that it's like, I don't know if the production designer got stuck with something or what happened, but it could have been, it was so close, and the fact that it got so close and didn't cross the line is what pains me every time I watch that film.
Yep.
All right, I got feels about this, but I'm going to bring on Tristan, who brought this movie up.
Oh, I love the story. But you know,
Tell us why you love it, man.
There's a lot to love, and I'll go back and rewatch it. It's not like I hate it. It's just there's some part of it in there that
the favorite or the guilty pleasure.
Oh no, go ahead. Tell us why you love it.
Okay, well, we'll start with the guilty pleasure. I'm a romantic. I love the Camelot mythos, the betrayal of Lancelot and Arthur, that whole thing. But it's such a campy movie. I mean, it was like you especially like all the Knights of Camelot. They're wearing these beautiful surcoats and these little silver medallions. Like the Knights of Camelot can't be harmed by normal weapons. Like they wear absolutely.
You're talking about First Night?
Yeah. Like it's a guilty pleasure for me. I'm a Sean Connery fan, and Greer, I can take him or leave him.
And Richard Gere, but that movie,
nothing.
I think they should have named the three characters like Bob, Sue, and Dave.
Yeah,
just ditch the whole, because it's a great story, but it has really little or nothing to. And then do not let the costume designers
They're wearing Star Trek. Yeah, no,
they're wearing Star Trek uniforms.
They're literally Star Trek uniforms.
Yeah.
That movie was too blue for me. Just
it was very blue.
but you know what? The set of Camelot looked amazing. Like the actual sets.
The background sets were beautiful.
Yeah, it was just gorgeous. But it's just
all right. Let's go to The Knight's Tale.
The Knight's Tale. I bet. How old is that movie now? 20 years old.
Stop it! It is not. It's like 3.
No, it came out while I lived in LA.
But you know what? I love the sets. Again, it's a romantic thing. It's the story of the underdog, like one of those classic tales that almost anybody can get into, and they get the pomp and the vigor right. Like you get into it right away. There's just so much energy in the movie. The anachronisms just pull you in even more. It makes it kind of like. Now it's ultimately relatable no matter where you are, right? Like everybody has that part in their life where I can do it even though I know the world's going to tell me I can't. And I'm going to do it anyway, come hell or high water. And like the characters are all so lovable. Like it's like you get connected with each and every one of them. It doesn't matter how small their role is, you actually get invested in everything. I know a lot of people love to hate it because of the anachronisms. I just think it makes it that much more charming. Like it's just like, they're all sitting there in the grandstands waiting for the joust to come, and they're all dancing to Queen. Like you can't
yeah. Okay, I got feels on this. Here's my point.
All right.
So the trick, one thing somebody brought up to me, and at first when I had all the modern music and the crazy makeup and the crazy outfits, and then I'm like, and somebody brought it up as like, they are playing it to how it would be enjoyable now. In other words, medievally, we would rock out we go to some football game, they're going to rock it out like it is now, and everybody's going to enjoy it, right? So it's no different than what we do in the SCA, right? In ways we don't reenact all the worst and all these other crap, right? It's like we reenact to a modern age view of the society, and that movie does it in real life. It's like, hey, we have all of this. If we were to take this now, this would be the culture and the way we're going to rock out the Queen. We're going to wear this crazy shit while we dance, and we're going to dance some crazy stuff, and it's going to be fun. And in the SCA, ultimately, we're trying to get to the fun part. And a lot of ways, that's what they kind of showed to me in that movie. Was like, we could all sat around, was like, oh, this is great. This dance is wonderful to period music, and nothing bad about period music. I dance a lot, so if anybody wants to argue with me, go ahead. But You know, I'm going to tell you, rocking out the Queen at a joust. Shit,
Yeah.
I could see them doing it at Renaissance festivals.
Try it at an SCA event sometime. Let's see how it goes.
Yeah. Fire up some David Bowie.
Well, I'm going to
Yeah.
tell you, we would like it. They wouldn't.
Okay,
Right.
but here's the thing with that. Like the Queen that they had going, you know, when they're doing the dancing at the ball, they start off with the medieval music, and it's all kind of like,
And then they break into golden years, and
Yeah, they
everybody's going freestyle.
because they have to show, because if they just showed us them doing like some medieval period stuff, we wouldn't get into it. We
Feel
wouldn't
what
have
we feel.
feel. So yeah, so the music is like it's like, hey, they were playing cool, like we start off with the medieval to show you, and then they break it out.
Yeah, that's Queen in their age.
Well, that's
Yeah.
the thing, right? That's I think the music is part of the best thing of this, because it shows the feeling of the movie. Because if they played actual medieval music, like we wouldn't get into it because we don't have the same sensibilities as they did.
Exactly.
Yeah, no, I love that movie. I will watch that movie a
Oh
million.
yeah, I'll watch it 100 times over. It doesn't stop me.
Oh, yeah.
It is
yeah.
a very watchable movie.
Yeah.
I watched parts of it.
I love that movie. That's just one of my favorites.
That can actually jump us to another movie that's on our list that we were talking about with a music mismatch, and that is Lady Hawke with
Oh, that's
Rutger
the
Hauer.
worst.
Man, the classic. And Christian, I'm going to leave you on for a little bit because not a lot of people jumping in. So guess what? You're a guest now.
Oh,
So I'm gonna lay this one out, and that is that I like the movie. It is a classic kind of fantasy tale that you would imagine a romantic tale between, you know, a knight and his love, and they're separated. I love the story. And by the way, here's the trivia part, and I'm going to try to pull my own George card on this one.
Okay.
It was Alan Parsons' project, got approached by the producers to do the soundtrack. And Alan Parsons, for those who don't know, was the engineer who did Dark Side of the Moon. So he was a very top-notch, music guy. And his group, he said, I would love to, this would be great to do medieval music for this movie. And the producer's like, no. We want synth pop. And he said, what? That doesn't make sense. Let me make music that would fit this movie really well. And they said, no, we want, 80s lighthearted synth pop. And he's like, okay. And that's the soundtrack you get, was what the producers wanted, not what the musician felt would make the best fit for the film. But I like the film. The music kind of grates on me. The costumes and the armor kind of grate on me, but I still love the story of the two lovers separated and how they overcome that with the bad guy. I mean, one of the best antagonists characters, the bishop, he was basically like, with the Robin Hood, like King John and the sheriff, they had that same, they had the bishop and then his, hard ass henchman guy. I think the whole story was very well told, but never been a big Matthew Broderick
Anybody
fan,
else
but
had feels
pretty
about
cool.
that one? I will tell you here. I'm going to go back to when we first started on VHS. When I got into the society, Baron Dermont was one of the people that was first people to kind of introduce me and wrap their arms around me and say, hey, I'm going to help you. Right. And he had a movie collection. He had 3 movies per VCR tape, and he had them all categorized, and he had them all in a list at what times they were. So we'd just go over there and watch movies all the time. And he had every medieval movie you could think of. And this brings me back to that place where it's like, we'd watch that movie all the time. And you're right. I hated the armor personally. Music, tell you the truth, I'd have to go back and listen to it because I don't even remember that part. The part that was most important was that relationship, that the love relationship going on through the whole thing. And I think that's what I think that's what makes that movie still last today.
Absolutely. Yep.
Yeah.
Anyone else? Who else watched it? Here, wait, everybody on their things, thumbs up, thumbs down. Come on, Christian. Oh, I hate you guys. I'm knocking you off.
No, the armor that Rutger Hauer wears just looks like space armor. Michelle Pfeiffer, for me, for whatever reason, doesn't look medieval. She's a great actor and does it wonderful, but she just doesn't have that energy for this movie. And then there's so many like little things about it like that. And then the music just rolls over everything. And Matthew Broderick is a terrible choice for this one.
Yeah.
It's like somebody was mad at him and said, "We're going to be in this movie now."
Yeah, he lost a bet somehow.
I think he did it like right after he did Ferris Bueller, right? Like as a kid, I saw Ferris Bueller, and then like the next Matthew Broderick thing I saw was either War Games, Lady Hawke, and Ferris Bueller were all about the same time, and he's that character. He's not, like there's the scene where he has the sword and he's trying to cut down the tree, and he's like, "Why would you cut down a tree with a gentleman's sword or whatever?" And he's Matthew Broderick. He does funny things.
He's wacky.
Well, Sunwolf just mentioned Rutger Hauer was also in Flesh and Blood, and that movie made my
God, that was terrible.
It was
bad.
Really, what it was to me was a combination of a gritty medieval movie drama and then a D&D adventure. Like, if you wanted a movie that was like a D&D party, that would be it. But
well, the director of that is, right?
What's that?
You know who the director is?
Who's the director?
What's his name? Oh, geez, I just spaced it. He directed RoboCop and Starship Troopers, and Paul Verhoeven's the director.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So when you watch it, like a lot of the things that you see in that film thematically, or the way his visuals on screen, you can see that's what he carries over into his other movies.
Sure.
It's very much a Verhoeven film.
Yep. Not terribly lighthearted. It's a more intense kind of drama. Which I thought it was kind of a refreshing change from a lot of the medieval type stuff, the Excaliburs and stuff like that, which is very lighthearted fantasy thing. So
some weird casting choices there too, like Brian James and who played the princess?
That was
the girl from Fast Times at Ridgemont High.
Yes, I'm picturing her face.
Jennifer Jason Leigh.
Yes. Yep.
All right, I'm gonna break this for a second, and Christian, how do you actually say your SCA name? Because I want to get that. I'd rather say your SCA name than your personal name.
It's Hervoye.
So, are you known by? So people call you Kervoye?
Hervoye, yeah.
Okay, Kervoye. I can't promise you I'm going to remember that. I am terrible. My brain doesn't work that well. But Kervoye, I'm gonna. This is a little personal. We are talking about 80s fantasy movies here, right? I mean, this is the beginning of D&D, and that whole time structure where people, D&D became great. There was a big fight back against it. All of this other crap, and all of these fantasy sword movies came out. Conan, all of these movies came out in this time, right? Flesh and Blood. There's a Rose one that's in there too. I forgot the hell the name was.
The name of the Rose.
Yeah.
Right? But you were younger, right? I mean,
a fair bit, yeah.
In 83, what were you doing?
In 83, I would have been Saturday morning cartoons, Transformers. I was in my preteens, like late childhood in 83.
All right, lucky you didn't have to watch all these.
No, I got to watch all of them or most of them a little later on.
No, I watched them all at like 11 and 12 years old.
Yes. So
I watched all this stuff.
I know. Well, that's right. You were young too, right? You were a baby when you came and trained with me.
Yeah. I when I was like 12 years old.
So you guys are about the same age.
Yeah, this is the only kind of stuff. We went to the video store, which that was like a rite of things to do every weekend. You went to the video store and you picked out your movie.
I'm 45 now, so.
I was still a baby. I get you.
Yeah, I was still quite young. The 83 was like, but yeah, no, in the early 90s though, then That's where.
Yeah, there's still stuff coming out. Hey, just a real quick throw on that. I have to say, I've been looking at I don't know if it was just because around Christmas, I was in the store and in Target, right? And I'm looking at these books. I'm like, what the hell are these books? They're D&D books. I'm like, oh, are these manuals? I'm like, no, they're D&D books. I mean, I know there's other books out there, but these are D&D books for kids.
Oh,
Yeah.
It's amazing how big D&D is now. I think it's bigger now than it was in our age.
Much bigger. And it's from all the it's all the Gen Xers like us, the younger ones, and you guys, the slightly older, where we all had to hide this crap growing up. Like, you'd get beat up on the frickin' playground, and I spent most of my afternoons after school, junior high school, going to the game store, and even then you walk out of there and you'd be surprised if someone didn't chuck an egg at you. But now we've all had our kids. You know, my kids are like they are ultra nerd compared to me. Why? Because they grew up in a nerd household. They grew up being able to appreciate it, and it's not a bad thing. And then now you have
the whole
like Lou Ferrigno and Vin Diesel and all these guys coming out in the last 5-10 years. We're playing on Critical Role. So now you just opened the floodgates. Now we're the cool kids on the block.
Yep. I tell you, it's interesting. Even where I work, it's been fun. I work with a lot of SCA people, so I have to post that. But I'm going to tell you, there's a lot of people. I work in a medical place, so there's a lot of doctors and stuff. And I'm like, IT, and I've been in IT forever. IT are like, I had people come in. It's like, wow, I thought IT were geeks, but these guys are way beyond that. We're like the normal people.
We're the normal people. I'm a graphic designer, but most of the guys that I played like BattleTech against and all, they're all doctors and engineers. Yeah. And like, it's like, wow, okay. I thought it was all us computer guys playing Secret of the Silver Blades on our C64. Like, we grew up with computers and we were around to watch the birth of the internet, and we just grew up in step with it. And like, we're the guys that like this. And like, no, I'm an oncologist and I play D&D like every 3 weeks with my friends, or we crack out the old hammer and stuff. Right?
Yeah. I can't keep up with them on between Harry Potter, Star Wars, and Marvel. I can't keep up with them. So,
I gave up years ago trying to keep up with the MCU. I'm just like,
I don't know what you're talking about.
The Marvel universe, like the expanded universe with all the Iron Man movies. It was like after the first Iron Man movie and after the first Thor, and there's a movie coming out every 4 or 5 months. I'm just like, I couldn't even keep up with the comic books as a kid. I just collected my favorites. I'm not doing this anymore.
Yeah. And back to Alaric's room. Look what's on his shelf. So, I mean, I think he keeps up.
Yep.
Yeah.
I don't have. I commend you. I do not have that kind of energy.
Well, you said the key thing, kids.
So,
yeah.
You know.
Hey, Tristan, we're gonna throw this back. Okay, I am tired of medieval movies. There are some. This kind of goes. You know, it's interesting because this kind of goes like books, and that is, I listen to really some traditional, and it's fun because there's like 8 really hardcore traditional Japanese books on, you know, right around Musashi's time, and you know, and Beck's favorite or Bess's favorite book, the five rings.
Book of the Five Rings.
And there's like 5 to 8 other books that are written really close to that time frame that are really tight. And I listen to those compared to like modern stuff, and so it's really interesting because the dynamics are considerably different. And so are movies, right? I mean, we had all of this fantasy, all this recreation of medieval, and then you flash back to samurai movie.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I mean, right? 7 Samurai.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, we have a brand new movie out that George just reviewed that is a lot like it, right? From what I hear, I mean, they have some samurai, influence in it on Netflix. But let's talk about Seven Samurai, or what do you want to talk about first?
Oh, for the Japanese, well, I mean, you almost have to start with Kurosawa because he just did so many movies, and as I remember, I haven't seen all of them, but most of them were remakes of Shakespeare tales, and one of the first ones I saw was Ron, and I really liked Ron, but when I went back and rewatched it, I didn't realize quite how long and dramatic it was. But the battle scenes on it, you talk about old school, like back from the 40s, having 1,000 or 1,500 or more extras, and full on, like, get you standing on your couch screaming and ready to grab a spear. Like that was fantastic. And even better, and this came out in '93, was Heaven and Earth, and I love that movie. It was a great movie. It wasn't long and drawn out and overacted, kind of the way I thought that Ron was, but powerful story, good drama, had that very Japanese feel and flow and pace. But boy, the battle scenes are just second to none. They're just fantastic.
Hey, Tristan, I'm just checking IMDb now. They used 1,400 extras and 200 horses. 1,400 suits of armor were fabricated.
Yep. Oh, it'll get your blood pumping. You're like at Penzic. It feels like being at Penzic watching that movie.
And it's his most closely tied to Shakespeare films too.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to also, there's a lot of color thematically used throughout the film for representation. So whenever you watch it, you need to keep your eye on who's wearing what color and how all that is going around as well.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, Seven Samurai, I liked it. I think I liked The Magnificent Seven a little better, mostly because I didn't have to read it. But still great movie. There's a lot of the Kurosawa movies I've been meaning to get to that I have not gotten to, but they're well-known and high-quality movies.
Well, which one is it? Hidden Fortress is basically considered one of the inspirations for Star Wars. So that's one of the other ones you have to keep your eye on.
Yep.
So I mean,
go ahead.
For me, there's a lot of out of that. It's the Flash, and I kind of drive back to books on this one because the real difference between the martial culture out of books for Japanese literature and American or medieval literature is significantly different, right? I mean, it's the discipline out of the Japanese culture. They also tend to be a little bit broad on how they talk about stuff, but they dive deeper into it, right? Where I think a lot of other cultures tend to they bring other influences in, romantic stuff. They bring all of really technical things. Where in the Japanese piece, you'll have two guys standing there, just like this, just waiting. I'm still waiting, and they'll show that shit. And I'm like, really? Most our other cultures don't understand that, right? Bess, I'm going to throw you under the bus on this one.
Oh God, which?
The whole Japanese idea of you should train more, or that standing off and having patience before throwing the one blow.
You must have patience and study it well.
And the camera flips back and forth and just gets closer to your eye contact every time.
But I have to say, for me, I think it takes some understanding and relationship, kind of relating it to what European flavor that we have really in the American side, to see what and understand what they're doing. And then if you're in martial arts, you absolutely know that a fight is one shot, right? The right shot. And there is a tremendous amount of time setting up that right shot. Right. And sometimes not a lot of movement.
Mhm.
But if
So
you're
he's like,
watching
nobody.
a movie, you want to see it move. Like, not like, oh, did her camera freeze?
All right, so we got to work on Bess.
Yeah. Patience. How long is that going to take to learn?
I have 5 minutes.
Oh my God.
But I will say,
So-
it doesn't seem like, Tristan, correct me if I'm wrong. I haven't watched a lot of Japanese style films, mostly because I don't like to watch I don't want to read the movies because then I can't watch the movies. They do seem to have a goodly number of female fighters in there. I've seen, when I have watched them, I do get to see that at least they've got females out there, women out there who are fighting. Am I mistaken, or am I just picking the right movies?
You may be
both.
picking the right ones, the newer ones, especially like Heaven and Earth has female samurai portrayed in it.
Okay.
Not a ton because most of them are extras. There are only a few of the actual crucial characters to the story of the film, but one of them is one of the central characters. But I don't remember any. Of course, like I said, there's a lot of Kurosawa movies I have not seen, but I don't recall many female samurai from those movies. George would be able to answer that one, I think.
Well, maybe not his movies, but I'm just thinking like the Japanese genre in general. It seems to
Right.
be, at least.
Yeah, and I'm not enough of an expert on the Japanese genre films to
Like if
to
we're
go
going
there,
to
but
talk about films, like, isn't it one of the Hugh Jackman? See, I'm being the Hugh Jackman.
oh, the Wolverine,
Thank you.
Wolverine movie. Yeah.
Wolverine is because there's one of the Wolverine movies. I know he goes over to, I think it's Japan, and they've got women who fight over there, and that's from my point of view, it's really nice to see women who are proactive and not sitting around screaming in the background, waiting to be rescued.
Yeah. By the way, if anybody likes to do a little bit of Google Foo when you can't sleep some night, look up female samurai photos, and you can find a lot of old, like those turn of the century or prior, real photos of women,
real photos
geared up in their armor, and it's really cool.
And they look great. I mean, they look like any other samurai, right? I mean,
and then while you're Googling, then look up Naginata. Because
the whole pole weapon gig gives you a whole new, better feel. Yep.
And back in that age, it was known as being a weapon for women to defend the home.
Yes.
And of course, it evolved later to be more. It's just a weapon for everybody, but and became popular as a competitive sport. But it is a competitive sport in Japan. You can watch women actually compete, and I mean,
like
they're badasses.
It's almost, and I hate to say this, but it's like kind of, because there's a lot of women that compete in that sport. There's men too, but more women. It is the equivalent, because they use the same type of sticks as kendo, right?
Yeah.
So they absolutely do it, and it's a very, very cool sport.
Yeah, pole arm kendo.
Basically. Yep.
So
Exactly.
It's vigorous. It's cool.
It's like watching some of those you see on YouTube, the pole arm competitions with the wushu women.
Right. Yep.
Like you watch them go, and you're just wondering, like, someone's going to lose an eye. Like, they are just fantastic and fast. It's insane the amount of accuracy and speed those women put into those pole arms.
Oh yeah, no, it's really cool.
Exactly, and there's a lot of appreciation there. Hey, I'm going to throw this one at. I was going to throw this one at. There's a brand new movie on Netflix, and I know that Alaric His Highness just covered it. I want to hear what he has to think about it.
No.
You didn't like it? Oh, come on! Yeah, I'm putting you on the spot, brother. You got to tear it down.
It's just it had way too much money behind it for what you get at the end. The actors are not inspiring. There's a scene where one character, a female character, is sword fighting against a giant spider, and she pulls out not lightsabers. I mean, like, everything about the movie is just like, okay, it's like not 40K, but your guys look just, it's like 40K light. Everything about the movie is just like not. It's like it's the Wish it's the Wish version of Star Wars, or the Wish version of Battle Beyond the Stars. It's
so
like,
what is the name of the movie?
Rebel Moon. It is.
Oh, okay. So you used a phrase in there, and I think this really hits home for another movie that definitely on my top 5, if not in my top 1 or 2 list. And that is when you said a movie that had way too much money thrown at it. This was the opposite. This was a movie that was really tight on budget, but they made it seem like a much bigger film, and that is The Duelists, which was Ridley Scott's first movie.
Yeah.
Now this is a little bit out of time period, but like I said at the beginning,
no, it is classic. That's a samurai flick, man.
No, this is
That's a great movie.
What I mean by that is it's the same feeling.
Same feeling.
To me,
okay, I'd buy that.
To me, it's that it's that one-on-one.
Right. It's a matter of honor, and it's based on a true story. It was a novel on a story of 2 Napoleonic era officers who got locked into a lifelong duel with one another, and that they had.
And so it's based on a real story. It is
based
guys.
on a true story of 2 real people.
Long duel. Isn't a duel an attempt to kill?
It is several different, like 5 encounters.
They're really bad, or they don't have enough, or they have too much patience.
I tell you, and the fights themselves were some of the best sword fighting put on film. Some of the best fights. I mean, very gripping. And you got Harvey Keitel, Keith Carradine were the two main actors. They both did a great job. The setting, and I mean, it's Ridley Scott, in my opinion, at pretty close to his best. And he did a lot with very little money. But he created the feel of what it was like in the Napoleonic era battlefield and in the culture and the whole. I mean, he steeps you in atmosphere. And what I love about the story the most is it's basically the story of valor and honor in the face of adversity. And the ending is probably one of the best endings of any movie of any time. So I would highly recommend The Duelists. Anybody else have thoughts on that one?
Now I need to go watch it.
No, it's classic. If you haven't watched, I mean, the fighting is great in it. The costuming is great in it. It's a Ridley Scott film, so across the board, he did it on low budget, but he brought all of his visuals to the screen, and every dollar is like multiplied by 10. It just looks fantastic. You have to put that on your sword fighting watch list if you've never.
Yeah, it's a must watch. There's just no doubt about it.
Yeah.
I don't know this one at all. Do you?
Oh, you got it. Yeah, you got it.
Oh, it's a classic. It's an absolute.
I've heard it. I've heard of it, but I have never watched it. So I'll definitely have to take a look and watch it.
Yeah, definitely. And these are kind of the movies that ring the chord with me. Another one that struck me, and this was one that I got introduced to right when I joined the SCA originally, and that was back in '83. Was El Cid with Charles. Now, the acting is kind of cheesy. It's a little more like watching a stage play with the overacting part, and that part I don't care for. But what I love is the virtuous man amongst a bunch of scoundrels, including his liege lord, who is a scoundrel who betrays him repeatedly, but he stays loyal. And it is a true story. Rodrigo de Navarre, long Spanish name, but true story, real guy. One of the best endings of a movie ever. And I'm not going to give it away because but it's epic. I mean, true epic. And because it's if I remember right, it was late 50s, early 60s, 61, I think. They still had that, tons of extras, big battle scenes, dramatic. Big dramatic, with a lot of drama in between, a lot of intrigue between it was son to a king who passed. The corrupt son becomes Rodrigo's liege lord, betrays him, basically is a scumbag who eventually kind of redeems himself in the end. But a lot of those older stories, and when I got introduced to the SCA, I had already gotten into a lot of Arthurian literature. So I came more from a literature storytelling side than a film. And that's why I found some of the medieval movies a little disappointing, because they didn't have that same flavor that the classic literature had. But El Cid I really liked, just as a movie about a virtuous man in a hard time. So
Yeah, actually, it's
Yeah,
going
and
on.
it's interesting because Kith was on earlier, and he brought that up too. That's his favorite too. 1961. Lots of people on set. You know, I think back then, I think some of the gig was just the more epic you made it with people. That's how they shot video, right? I mean, that's how they shot movies, and we don't do that quite as much, or we'll do that with AI, you know, or with not AI, but we'll do that with, you know, anything from like The Hobbit and pulling the Zulu stuff into it to, you know, till now where it's all just, you know, graphic animation stuff. So,
Well, like speaking of the movies, like what Tristan was just saying, like that style of movie, and I believe they used quite a few extras in this one too. Is Kingdom of Heaven?
yes,
Like there was a lot of additional personnel, and those battle scenes were just like. But again, it's still like there was that dramatic, intense portions in between the mood, like setting the tone and the mood between all the major players, right?
Gladiator was similar to that in feel.
Yeah.
So you know what? Let's talk about a couple epics. I mean, I'm just going to throw out a couple epics that for me, Gladiator, Conan. Trying to think of some of the other big ones, but you know, there are some definite epic, like big budget pull-ins, you know, that grabbed audiences, and it's hard to, you know, shoot. I remember we did a demo at Gladiator in the movie theater. So, so George, what is your number one medieval movie?
Medieval film, like a real historically accurate. Or
what one do you like the best?
I always go back to Excalibur.
Do you really?
Yeah.
You know, we kind of left that one off a little bit. I mean, we talked around it, but you know, like the original Excalibur with Merlin with the chrome hat on, and
Unal Nathrak Dathiel Dienve. I mean, what do you want me to say?
That's awesome. That is awesome. So that is definitely.
I love that movie. I love that movie. Yeah, that's the one that, you know, as a kid, it came out like what, 1980, 79, 80, 81, right around there. I was like 10 years old, and it just hit the screen big. It was an Arthurian story, and it made Disney's Sword in the Stone look like a child's book. But it was the same story, so I knew it, and everything was big. The sword fighting was big. The armor was too big, but still looked cool for a 10-year-old. And that's one of the ones that just roped me in. And you know, it's the music. I mean, that's the other half, is the music. Music is one of the things that, like, you know, when I see everyone running across the field at Penzic half the time, that's the music. Either that or Conan is what's running in my head. So yeah, it had its effect.
So because I like trivia a lot, I as we're talking about it, I pulled it up. So apparently when they called cut, a bunch of the Irish extras didn't want to stop because they wanted to settle some old scores.
Oh, that's great.
Well, okay then. Yeah. God.
That was damn Irish.
That's
they know. Watch it, buddy.
So it's that, you know, it's Irish, because we were talking before the show. We were talking about Braveheart, and in Braveheart, the same thing. Up to 1,600 extras were used for the battle scenes. Most were members of one of the soccer clubs. The Reserve Irish Army. Different companies usually come from the same area, and rivalries are common. Apparently, some of the battle scenes are far more realistic than intended, with rival companies trying to beat this as lard out of each other. So apparently, when the Irish get in as extras in a fighting scene, they're going to go for
They
it.
take it personally.
Yeah,
Irish and fighting go together like peanut butter and jelly.
Yeah.
pretty much. I'm like, oh, surprise.
So I'm gonna roll this back for a moment, because Bess, you kind of gave me a challenge. There's a movie I'm gonna recommend for you. It's called Uzumasa Limelight,
Called
and
what?
it's Uzumasa Limelight. It's a Japanese film,
Okay.
specifically about a young actress who's being trained by an older, aging kind of mentor actor to be a female fighter in period samurai films.
Okay, cool
Oh,
beans.
that's cool.
Now, how is
Hey,
that
if
for
you
how's that
find
for a niche? How is that for a niche for you? Right?
Yeah.
exactly. Hey, Bess, if you
And you
find
put
it,
that,
post it
type that
online
into
so
the
people can
chat.
see it.
So if people want to come back to it and look in the comments, they can see the name of
It's
that.
a great film, and it's about it's kind of like it's an older mentor. A guy's aging out of being able to get any roles in the samurai films he's been acting in for 50 years, and this young woman is up and coming, and he it's the whole idea. She works with him after hours and all the time. But it's also you want a female fighter movie. I found one.
Yeah, well, it's all because I came up in the SCA when we weren't having female fighters. So that I authorized probably before you were born in like 87, 86.
Me?
Yeah.
I've been in the SCA since '89, so.
Oh, okay.
He's old. He's old.
For some reason, I got the impression you were much younger than us. Okay. Well, I feel much better then.
No, I think I'm 6 years younger than Brannos.
Yeah, he's younger than me.
Okay. So when I see this stuff, it was really hard coming into the SCA. They're just women didn't fight. When I first asked, I was told women don't fight. Or then it was, well, they're allowed. That I was like, are we allowed to fight? And they're like, well, you're allowed to fight. And then it was, some guys didn't want to fight women. So it's always been, for me, it's always been hard to find people who came before me who fought, in the movies or wherever. So I'm always very interested in finding these kinds of things. I can identify with Henry V, but there wasn't a Henrietta, for example, and that's kind of
a lot of the fantasy movies in the mid '80s actually have a relatively large number of female warriors in them. I think because a lot of the men in them are so overblown that we forget that Zula is in Conan the Destroyer, and Grace Jones does a tremendous part of that role. Or what's her name? The woman who was unfortunately killed by the record producer. She's in the first Deathstalker movie. If you know who I'm talking about, I can't. Her name is but she's like a 6-foot blonde woman, and
yeah, I know who you're talking about. Is she German or Austrian or whatever?
No, she's very American.
Okay.
But the first Deathstalker movie is essentially Enter the Dragon with swords. It's a tournament where all these warriors come together to fight to win the prize, and she is right in the top group and does her thing throughout the entire film. It's a low budget movie. It's not a great movie or anything, but
it's still one. Yay. I'm watching a new series right now on Amazon Prime called Wheel of Time, I think it is. It's 2 seasons.
Yeah, that one.
And I like it just because there are women who fight, women who don't fight, and men who fight, and men who don't fight. It's just like, hey, you do what you want to do type of thing. And it's nice to see, women are leaders. Some women are leaders, some are not. Some men are leaders, some are not. It's just like, whoa, just people being people.
A lot of the costumes in that movie are nice.
Pardon me?
A lot of the costumes are nice.
I actually like the costumes, right? Because they're homages. They're not like they are so costumes, but they're homages to cultures and whatnot. So I like that they provide the feel.
Have you watched Blue Eye Samurai on Netflix yet?
No, I haven't.
You definitely need to watch that one too, then.
Okay. I'm taking notes as we talk.
I know you're getting all kinds of notes, Bess. This is awesome.
And that one just came out a couple weeks ago, so
okay.
It did, yeah.
But that one, great movie. You'll appreciate it. I think.
Thanks.
Yeah, no problem.
Okay.
All right.
I got to go with Princess Bride.
Oh, that one had to come up.
Yeah, how do you not love that
We didn't
movie?
talk about that on this show.
I know we didn't discuss it anywhere. I don't think it showed up anywhere in any
No,
of
it's on the list. It was on the list.
list. Okay.
Yeah, it was on the
Oh,
One of the best.
Helen,
One of the best choreographed sword fights in any movie.
Yeah,
Just hands down. It was.
and there's a joy on screen in that sequence too that you just don't see in most things. So they loved every
repeatedly
minute of that.
throughout it, there was a joy, like in most of the scenes. You know, every actor was the best, pretty much the best fit they could have gotten for the role.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
So
I just couldn't do it, guys. You guys are now making me want to go like, okay, I got to go watch this again and look at it.
And you know what? You know what? It's a great Christmas movie too.
Shut up!
Okay, I don't actually like The Princess Bride because Buttercup is such a fucking wuss. Oh, I'm going to stand here and let everybody rescue me. Oh, as you wish, princess. Dude, get a backbone. Walk from this bitch who was like sending you into death and destruction here.
take off your helm and flip your hair.
Oh, damn.
So I'm not actually keen. There are parts of it I do like, but overall, Buttercup drives me insane. Just drives me crazy.
Well, she's not a badass like you, Bess.
All right, I got a question for you guys. And I watched this series, and it was actually very good. It came out of the Eastern, like the Lower Eastern Bloc. It was a 12th century series, and I'm trying to remember the damn name to it. I've been kind of looking it up through. I don't have a lot of time, but I've been trying to find it. I actually have it on DVD. I need to go out to my room and look. But they did a great job, and the video quality was good. It was weird because they had to subtitle some stuff like between medieval languages through the culture. And I trying to remember what it was based on.
Was it the Viking show with about Ragnar Lothbrok and that she was blonde?
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
No, this one was like a super period show.
I know the one you're talking about. I'll be able to find it for you later.
Okay, and we'll post that up later because I'm going to tell you, it was very the show was
very period.
Yeah, it's very period. They shot it as, and it was all these medieval groups out of the Eastern Bloc, like doing all the extras and everything else. The armor was super period. Everything. Probably, I'm sure the acting could be better, and you had to read subtitles, but it was sharp, man. And I'm killing me that I can't remember the name. I've been looking it up like between shots here for a little while because I'm like, one of the cooler ones was that one. So on medieval period atmosphere wasn't entertaining. So let's talk about that a little bit.
So it wasn't entertaining, but it was historically great.
No, let's talk about that. Entertaining or period.
So, but period.
Now that we're onto that one, I wanted to put up an honorable mention for this specifically, which was gritty and authentic, but still entertaining, and that was HBO series Rome.
I love.
Oh man,
Rome.
Watched it.
And when I got really hooked into it, I remember reading an article saying that everything that they showed in there was very well documented and researched. Like even the graffiti that they had on the walls and the background detail.
The gladiator stuff was incredible.
How like the Vikings show
was structured, and how they portray it. All that stuff was quite accurate. So, and I found it very entertaining, the story and the characters and every part of it. Yeah. So
that was really good. But let's talk about period stuff. Like, okay, let's go with Henry VIII. There's sex, there's political intrigue, there's people having their heads cut off. There's, if you go later period, there are like kings being deposed. Like, guys, history is full of really super interesting stuff.
Yep.
oh my God, like all you have to do is like throw on some accurate costumes. Like what the hell? It's not that hard. There's
Well,
so
yeah,
much.
it actually is. It actually is, because what you're not contending with is that the moment you go to someone to get money for a film, you have a level of influence
Oh,
over the film that's not necessarily in your control anymore. So even on like some movies that I worked on where it was part 1, part 2, part 3, the production designer, the costume designer might not be the same one from the beginning. So they don't want to just use the same costumes, or else how can they put that on their resume essentially, right? They have to bring something new to it, or at least they feel like it. So for a lot of historical films, we would present people with a binder of information from research that we had done on the correct look of a costume or the correct armor that was worn in Italy, in northern Italy in 1502 or whatever it was. And they'd be like, "Yeah, that's not really inspiring. We need something." So you start getting these other things in there and other influences that really just start tearing apart any chance or opportunity that you have to just do a straight up period film. Because as a designer, as a costume designer, what do you get from just getting everybody to wear 14th century garb from a certain place? That is what it is. Like you didn't really do anything, did you? So
okay. That when you say it like that, it makes sense. Which
You
explains
know,
why.
I can also see too, having looked into costuming over many different eras and geographic locations, you get to a point where like, wow, the men's outfits look great, but the women's are, what the hell is that? And vice
yeah,
versa, right? So as a
Yeah.
costume designer and somebody wants to put something on film, you say, oh, I like these men's outfits, I like these women's outfits, and you put them together, like they don't match. They're not from any, not from the same
right.
century or not from the same
Or
place or
or you've made a whole ton of costumes for something, and someone walks in and they're like, "Oh, those don't work. That has to be this color and this needs to be that." And you're like, "Who the hell are you?" He's like, "Oh, I'm the president of whatever studio. So I'm the one signing your checks. So go ahead and change them for me." And it's like,
Oh,
all
Christ.
right, we just spent 6 months working on all this junk to make it look perfect, and you just in 6 seconds walked in and said you don't care about historical accuracy whatsoever.
Well,
right.
and I guess the thing is, if you're not in a historical club, right, or if you don't have an interest in history, you don't really want necessarily history. You want what you imagine history is. You want
Well, even
like the SCA, you want Victorian history.
even worse, what movie? The Last Duel came out what, a year ago, year and a half
Mhm.
Oh
ago,
yeah,
something like
yeah,
that.
yeah.
So I'm watching that movie, and a lot of the armor's just too big. It has like the right general feel. It's like that's almost correct, but one guy puts his helmet on, and half of the visor is cut away.
Oh
And
yeah.
I'm like, you're gonna joust in this with half your face open, and the only reason it was like that was the compromise because the actor didn't want to act on screen without their face being seen.
I
Oh
heard
my
the same thing of Troy when they
yeah.
had the Greek helmet with the faceplate opened up so they could show Brad Pitt's face so that he can act. Of
Right.
course, it
Right, and
exposes
that's
his face
and
again.
not too long ago when Pedro Pascal was first doing The Mandalorian, they said to him, "Don't you mind? Like, doesn't it bother you that no one can see your face?" He's like, "I'm the coolest bounty hunter in the world at the moment. I don't care if people can see my face because they know I'm the Mandalorian." Like, he's one of
Right.
the only people
That's
I've ever
correct.
seen just flat out say that. But so
Hmm.
many of these other actors, or if a producer's like, "We're paying that person $20 million to be on screen," people are going to see their face so we can use it in
With
marketing.
their, you know what? They
The, the,
play. I'm sure they pay him a shitload of money, and he's in helmet, and nobody sees his face.
So
right.
that
I'd also be willing to bet that it takes a very high degree of acting skill to act in a mask or behind a helmet and convey
Well,
emotion.
watch Willem Dafoe as the Green Goblin in the first
Mhm.
Spider-Man movie when he's
Yep.
talking with Spider-Man on top of the roof, and
Mhm.
he's wearing this Green Goblin. Like, there's no movement. There's no. It's one of the weirdest scenes you'll ever watch because it's just
Yeah.
not. There's no
And I think
facial
a perfect
expression or anything.
example is Hugo Weaving in V for Vendetta. Like that guy could
Which is
act through a mask.
Well, ironically, he's the second actor in the film. He wasn't originally cast because the first guy complained that no one could see his facial expression, and for the same reasons. So they brought
Mm.
Hugo Weaving in, who they'd worked with on the Matrix films. So they brought him in, and he just said, "Yeah, I'm cool with it." But that's also why he wouldn't do another turn as the Red Skull, because he said, "I can't deal with the makeup."
Oh.
Interesting.
So here's the thing that bugs me in all these movies is the number of times that I see arm armor and especially shoulder armor put on backwards.
Oh yeah.
God.
Yep.
Because everyone thinks that the bigger part of the pauldron goes on the front, not on the back.
Right.
See it again and again, all the time. It's like every movie, every show. It's like,
I
really?
watched an Amazon Prime, Arthur and Merlin, Knights of Camelot.
Oh my God, that was terrible.
Was that the TV show, the series?
It was on Amazon. So they have the bad guy, the Mordred character. He's wearing a cloak, no other armor, and they have a pauldron on him. But it's like I took an aluminum oval rectangular thing and went crack, 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 and you could actually see the lines where somebody like tried to bend it around his arms, and he's wearing it over a cloak, and I'm just like, this hurts me. I had to force myself to watch it because I knew this episode was coming, so I was going to watch it. But damn. But you know what you were talking about is actors wanting FaceTime or not being able to emote. It dresses, and another thing that makes me crazy is that like the big fight. You know, oh, I'm going to go in. I'm going to be a battle. People will be swinging at my head. Best take this helmet off and throw it off to one side.
That's why they do it. That's 100% why it's done. Is because it's the big fight scene. They want to make sure that everyone knows who's who. But even in the Marvel movies, think how many times there's an explosion and just half of their face gets, the face mask gets burned off or whatever. It's the same idea.
Wow, that explains.
I have to say it's interesting because between all the Marvel movies and everything else, there's a lot of actual faces being covered and things like that. You look at Batman and things like that. It's interesting that we've gotten to the point where movie actors can handle that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because there's so much ego, it seems, around that whole thing.
It's a balance. There's like the Batman, at least you can see his eyes and you can see the mouth and you can see expression, right? But for a lot of them, Iron Man, how many times did we go inside the helmet that RDJ was wearing rather than just seeing the expressionless outside?
But he's a bigger man than Iron Man, right? I mean, he's a bigger character.
Look at Tom Holland's Spider-Man or Deadpool, where they CGI the expression onto the eyes. They move the things around. So there's a lot of things like that go into what you see in a film or what you don't see. But I can't believe we've been talking about all this and no one's mentioned Highlander yet, which is by far it won the Oscar for the greatest film of all time.
By far the best. Highlander won. And the series was actually good too.
The series wasn't bad
and
either.
So was the sub-series for Bess. Was it Raven?
The Raven.
Like that?
The Raven. Yeah. That was a good series too.
That was
it only got like one season, but it was a really good one and just didn't catch on.
Bess, have you seen that series?
No.
The female Highlander series?
Not
the whole series.
Well,
female Highlander.
And Raven. Specifically Raven.
Raven?
It's called the Raven. It's called the Raven, yeah.
Well, no, then maybe.
It's kind of like Highlander, but a woman.
It is Highlander. It is the literal spinoff. She's one of his friends.
It totally is a spinoff.
Okay.
It's a total spinoff.
Okay, thank you. I'll be tracking things down. Make no mistake. Yeah. I got my whiteboard full of notes.
Bess is taking notes tonight. Like all these movies, I don't have time to watch.
And then if you're gonna watch that one, you may as well watch the Charlize Theron one. Which one was it? Came out like 2 years ago. The Old Guys or something like that. What's it called? Let's see. Yeah, it was called. Don't you all remember that one? It came out like 2 years ago. I think it went straight to Netflix or Amazon, and they're making a sequel to it. The Old Guard with Charlize Theron, where it's essentially Highlander. They're all a bunch of immortal mercenaries.
Oh no, I don't know if I've seen that.
She's the leader of the group. It's very tolerable. It's like if you need a movie to watch, you know everything that's going to happen in it, but it's well done. And
Well,
Charlize
Bess
Theron
needs
does
every
she does a
female
great job.
badass movie to watch.
Hey, not just me, because there's only so much Sir Bess we can watch on Coach's Corner. Somebody needs something good to watch.
Yeah, that one's the old. No, these are
more hair
good
flipping.
movies. The Old Guard, and then if you haven't seen Atomic Blonde yet, you gotta watch that one.
Yes, I have. Yeah, I have seen that. Yes. Oh,
yeah, she's phenomenal in that.
Okay. Oh,
but
God.
the Old Guard, you'll like that one. You'll like that one.
All right, so we got about 3 minutes left, and an episode I thought maybe we'd get through relatively fast is drawn out into lots of fun and lots of just talking between the holidays. And thank you guys. It was nice to talk. Bess got homework, so we want to hear all the homework, Bess, how it goes.
I'll make book reports to you guys.
So
I don't think we got through more than half of the list.
Why don't you pull up and see what we have next week?
Oh, it's in the chat.
You could just run through them real fast, and we can all give thumbs ups and thumbs downs.
So next week is the January 3rd episode is maintaining a positive attitude on the battlefield.
Well, that's interesting. Who's doing that one?
We don't have anybody down for it.
So who the hell came up with that episode?
Oh wait, Tristan does. Tristan is he's down as I guess he's the presenter, the coach. All
right, Tristan, what were we actually talking about here?
Maintaining a positive attitude on the battlefield.
No, stop this.
Well, it's easy to let intensity and competition kind of overwhelm you, and it's important to keep your attitude positive and create a good atmosphere. Usually on a melee field more than on the tournament field, but still keeping a good attitude so you can perform your best, keeping a good attitude so you can portray yourself in an honorable way, keep your reputation. All these things can enter into it to make it pleasurable not only for you to fight, but for your opponents and for everybody watching. So we're going to
talk about this for a second because this is the deep subject, brother.
Oh, it is.
So here we are. I got called out for that shit years ago, by the way, at Penzic.
Well, it sounds like you're going to be on this episode then.
But it was literally, it's that whole place where the balance, and this is a hard conversation because not everybody gets put in these. I think a lot of people are thinking like, oh, keep a positive attitude. That just means I have to, be happy about stuff. That is absolutely not the scenario. I think keeping a positive attitude is there's a really fine line between I'm going to destroy somebody or I'm going to have fun with somebody, and finding that place. And I know His Highness will agree. There are sometimes I got called out for, there are sometimes when people don't take stuff or you get so caught up in perfection and in the fight that you're like, this is the killing blow. I mean, you are throwing the blow. It hasn't even hit yet. And it's the killing blow. And you step over that fucking dead body. Sorry. You step over that body and just walk past them because you are in the moment. That is, by the way, the bottom side of that. So you should be called out. The idea is, I think, that place where it's still fun and we don't have to tear people down to make it that place. And I hope, Tristan, I'm communicating that correct.
Yep. It's not going to be a quick 10-minute episode of just smile and be happy and go fight. That's not what we're talking about.
No, that is absolutely not it. Ouch, man, brother.
Yep.
Okay, so Brannos, I'm writing you down for it next time.
I don't know. My wife might kill me.
Well, be happy about it.
Well, if you're going to go, that's the way to go.
Yeah, you know what? Ping my wife, Bess, and talk her into it.
All right, you can delete your name, but it's on the Excel spreadsheet for now.
Yeah, you can wear a mask.
And just real quick, Your Highness, have you ever run into that spot?
What, where you're just blowing through people and?
Well, it's more that you're so lost in the fight that you just don't realize who's in front of you anymore.
You know, like one of the worst examples of that for me was I was in a tournament and I go out against this guy and he had beautiful armor on, everything looked great, and he got in the guard, and everything, all my alarms went off that this is a top level fighter. He'd been fighting for 3 weeks and he was like a garb laurel, and I blasted him and I felt so bad afterwards because it was like you just go into the moment and you don't realize who you're fighting or what you're doing, and you have to repair that afterwards, because that's not how we want to interface or engage with someone who might be new to the heavy field, and we just have to be mindful of that all the time, I think.
And I guess, that's a piece is. Let's try this again. So some of that is, I think, what we're trying to get to on the show. So good show. I wanted to make sure people understood what was coming. And meanwhile, I'd like to, I really like to thank everybody who all the coaches came out tonight, and His Highness for joining us, and for a couple of guests joining us. And I hope everybody had a great episode. I hope really everybody had a great holiday and going into New Year's. It's a new year coming up, and it's a chance to take a look, review on our own space that we had, and look forward to better things. And we'll talk about that coming in New Year. All I know is I have a lot more friends all around the world, and I have learned so much, and I appreciate this from the coaches on this group and from our guests on this group. I can't tell you, George, when Saib was like, "Oh, please come to Great Fighters of YouTube because I know nobody," and right at the beginning of COVID, I'm like, I've had enough with Facebook or with Zoom shit, and she's like, "No, you have to come." And then when you were there, it was like old home week, and I am so happy we reconnected through that period of time.
Me too.
So appreciate the things, everyone. Appreciate the things. Lots of bad stuff happens, but look at the good stuff too, because that's what makes life the best. And I hope everybody has a great New Year's. I hope all of you guys have a great New Year's right here, because I really love you all a lot, because you help me all along and you're always there for me. So,
back at you, Brannos, and Happy New Year to everybody in Coach's Corner.
You too.
Yeah, and thank you for making this site so great, and thank you for sharing with everybody. So, everybody, Happy New Year's, have a great time, and we will see you in 2 weeks.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye, folks.